Hi everybody, welcome to this seminar that is co-hosted by Lancaster University China Centre and Lancaster University's Confucius Institute. Today we are really delighted to welcome Professor Yupei Zhao, who comes from Zhejiang University. Professor Zhao has a PhD from the University of Leicester in the UK and is a 100 Talent Programme Young Professor and a doctoral tutor in the College of Media and International Culture in Zhejiang University. She's currently the Vice Chair-elect of the International Communication Association's Popular Media and Culture Division, as well as co-founder of the UK-China Media and Communication Association. And today she will be talking to us about her research into eSport, the eSport industry, in a paper called From eSport Industry to Players, Understanding the Platformalization of Infrastructure and Digital Culture in China. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Professor Zhao. She'll be speaking for about 40 minutes. More or less, and then we'll have time for a Q&A and wrap up at noon. So if while she's talking you want to jot down any questions, there's a Q&A written forum open that we will open up after her talk. Without further ado, then I hand over to Professor Zhao.
Hi, everybody. Is that clear? Okay, great. Thank you for inviting me to the University of Lancaster. And today I'm very happy to share my recent research about the eSport in China. Actually, today I would like to share my several papers outcome that together to concentrate on different angles of the eSport industry in China. So firstly, I would like to share some important data. First is, as part of a drive to establish China as a leader in the digital era, the State General Administration of the Sport of China approved eSport as country's 1990s official sport in 2003. So that means 18 years ago. And then it modified as 17.8 in 2008. So it has rapidly emerged as an essential component of contemporary digital youth culture in China. And the second data is, as you might figure out, actually more than 55% of the global gamers are in Asian Pacific, and this region is still fast growing. And the next page, that concentrate on in 2018, the revenue from the online and offline PC and mobile eSport games in China has exceeded 91.2 billion RMB, which is equivalent as $13.63 billion. So over 350 million consumers playing mobile eSport, and the games comprise more than 15% of this revenue. And also in 2016, China surpasses the United States and has been the world's largest digital gaming market. And this growth is occurring in the context of debates about the expansion of Chinese digital platforms or the digital media intermediaries in the Asian Pacific region and the eSport expanded popularity. So what exactly eSport? And of course, we have to go back to the very basic definition, which is first described by Hemphill, who defined that eSport is as alternative sport reality for electronic extended athlete in digital represented sporting world. eSport has rapidly developed into a worldwide industry. However, Hemphill himself later expanded his definition to include the electronically extended human actions in computer-mediated or the generative sporting world. So, which has significantly broadened his understanding of the e-sport with a more complex social cultural context. And the whole development and the scale of the e-sport has generated substantial research about issues of interest to both academics and entrepreneurs. For example, about the business of gaming, the gaming's effect on public relationship and advertisement, and also the social effects of the gaming, including the toxicity of the gaming culture. So my research, actually, the first part of my research that I would like to share today, aims to investigate the platform governance and the platform economy in the Chinese esports industry by offering the in-depth insight through a case study of the platformalization of Tencent, one of China's largest media conglomerates. So I would like to question, but before I raise up the question, actually there are a lot of literatures focused on the discrepancies or differences or similarities between the esports and the video games, which is I'm not going to shed light today, but there are a lot of literatures talk about this. And then I think that's very important to go through how actually from the academia or from the practice that embrace the esports through the perspective of sport. First, we could say that competitive video games is considered as a sport could be traced back around the 1990s by the Sport Academy in London. However, at the same year, a deadline delivered by the United Kingdom Professor Computer Gaming Championship at the sport at the same year. And then it raised up as official one in China. And also the government in the United States start to recognize esports players as professional athletes. Then some universities in the United States, like the Robert Morris University, was the first one to coin the eSport to be official varsity sport. Not only work together with athlete department, but also supported the gaming scholarship for eSport athletes. And then there are some other universities follow this one. Now, I think a lot of scholars or entrepreneurs who are research or focus on this field are so looking forward the Asian Games, which take places in China, Hangzhou, the places I'm staying in right now, because eSport will be the first time as official sport at Asian Games next year. So how about that in China, and why I use the concept of platformalization and infrastructure? Because we know that infrastructure actually coins or rooted in something wrong on things, substrate or events or movements like the railroad, highway, but this concept was eventually regarded too shallow and too absolute. So it has expanded by different disciplines, which include information and data infrastructure. So the information infrastructure actually as a shared, open, and involving the social technical system consisting of a set of IT capabilities and their users, operations, design communities. And the data infrastructure is defined as social technical system implicated in the creation, processing, and distribution of data. So hosting a variety of the platform instances, including the apps or web instances. And the concept of platform actually, sorry, I have to move to the next slide. The concept of platform is not fully developed in different disciplines. For example, the literature in the technical industry in the early 20s on the platform refers to digital intermediaries to match people, information, or goods. And in information science discipline, the platform began to frequently viewed either as software-based the platforms as an architectural construct or an online marketplaces. But for example, the economics or business scholars who perceive the platforms from the perspective of business model assess as either matchmakers or something like digital environment characterized by near zero marginal cost of access or reproduction or distributions. And the platforms in our discipline, the media and communication, extended from the content sharing to social media applications. For instance, like the platforms as digital infrastructure that enable two or more groups to interact and further characterize several kinds of platforms, including advertising, products, lead, industrial, or cloud. And even we would like to capture how communication, online activities, and expressions are capacitated or constrained by digital media. So these two concepts actually involved and growing together, which means that both studies examine the structures that underline something more salient or share the features of invisibility, extensibility, and broad conversation, which both help the theories to frame and understand the expansion of digital media. So that is the background of my research. So my basic research questions is, do Tencent eSport and the Chinese government roles in managing the eSport platformization and their own infrastructure ambitions compete with each other? So to solve this question, I proposed a concept. It is called umbrella platform of Chinese eSport. So, you know, umbrella we have used normally have an umbrella close and have an umbrella stand. So umbrella close means refers to the regulatory platformization of infrastructure in my research. And the umbrella stand refers to the growth of the value chain and multi-sided platforms. So I would like to unpack this perspective one by one. So in the first part, the umbrella close, the Chinese eSport actually has attributed the entertainment, media, sport, and significant influence by various policies. Actually, the Chinese government could be described as umbrella close of infrastructure of digital platforms because it determines both the life cycle and expansion of Chinese eSport and the video games. And the interesting one is there are more than 6 ministrations or departments have launched a series of the regulation and policies to cover the game content, game licensing, game competition, education, coaches, and professional players. So if we engage one conference about the eSport, and you would find out actually there are more than 6 departments of the officials sit there and they try to solve out these problems from their own jobs positions. So that's why the policies are really important for the eSport in China, because the eSport in China and when we're comparing the eSport in China and that one in Korea, there's a huge differences. So we would say the industry in Korea one is a top-down one, but in China it's bottom-up because of the huge market. So the government have to launch a series of the policies to regulate this industry. Okay, so actually there is a table that I tried to map out the major policy events in the Chinese eSport industry from 2003 to 2015. Why I choose the year 2000 temporarily stopped the by the 2016, because in 2016 actually eSport in China entered a new stage. I will introduce later. But from this table, it's mapped out how the eSport growth and the development followed meandering paths and generated a very complicated environment. So in 2016, the eSport in China, the government actually reacted to eSport global popularity by signaling a newfound willingness to actively solve the problem within the eSport industry. For example, in the same year, they have launched the 4 important regulations which cover the support for importing the digital technologies from other Chinese states, and also encourage the industry to improve the development of mobile games, the live stream services, and VR technology. And thirdly, they funded initiatives to organize national professional eSport tournaments. The last one, that encouraged the Chinese colleges and universities to offer professional eSport courses. So I think that there are two regulations issued in March and May 2016 actually banned the game content which subverted the state power and disturbed the social order. So these regulations temporarily halted the licensing of the game products imports to China, particularly those judged unhealthy or having poor taste content. Okay, so I've also interviewed some eSport clubs, managers, coaches, the chief coaches, and the players. Some of the interviewees explained why the government favors the eSport industry and indicated that the government has constructed several eSport towns like Taitang or Chongqing eSport towns. But actually, these towns have been ineffective in growing and regulating. For example, one of the courts say the government only offer policy to attract more investment, aiming to balance the disparity between the rich and poor, and improving their own political performances. But in fact, no one really wants to move these urban towns, so it's empty there. And I have visited the eSport towns several times in different places, but almost empty there. So you could say that the policies, the next slide, the policies, this ambiguity results in the decline of authorities' political influences on users, which is often considered as a hallmark of the authoritarian society. And for example, if we would like to continue to explore the political economy of the platforms in eSport industry, should be considered the exploration regarding the second question is, do Tencent eSport and Chinese government role in managing the eSport platformization and their own ambitions, how they complete or oppose or compete with each other. So this map has mapped out the Chinese eSport industry from different strings, the upstream, the middle string, and the bottom string. And I would say Tencent has established their own eSport empire by looping up their upstream, middle string, bottom string through a different way. So, for example, when we try to talk about the Tencent from the upstream, we would say this slide. The Tencent facilitates its business infrastructure as the main producer of video games content in China, including the popular games such as the Leagues of the Legend, Arena of the Valor, and Crossfire, and another one, the Survival of the Lost JD. So actually, Tencent has moved consolidated and built up its own platformized infrastructure internationally through part or complete ownership of the world leading games publisher or developer of the popular games. So, for example, in this table, you'll find out Tencent bought 100% of the share in American Frontier developer Riot Games, and 10% of American company Activision Blizzard's eSport branch. And also in 2016, it brought Finland's Supercell, whose Clash of the Clans was the mobile game hit. So yes, that's the way that they try to grow up. And however, between the 2014 to 2017, the mobile games emerged as the major source of the revenue. So the mobile games actually represented more than half of Tencent's annual revenue in those years. So that's why some of the think tank or some of the big name, they have confirmed that the Tencent partially controlled about a third of the revenue generated by the top 10 global companies. So that's this slide showed us. Okay, so regarding the middle string of the eSport value chain, Tencent's operations actually represent the industry core resources. The Tencent's importance is best exemplified by the WCG, which demonstrates the material integration of the media, sport, and the participants. So Tencent values organize the competitive gaming and has radically expanded its platformized infrastructure to capitalize on organized gaming potential profitability. So that's what we called the first. Tencent has become a major executive of the gaming leagues and running many significant tournaments. Second, the Tencent Games, their own tournament, TGA, founded 11 years ago, covered various gaming gyms and integrate the organizational, physical, interactive digital technology into tournaments. And the most important, the total prize pool of the Grand Prix is about 80 million RMB. And the third is we found that the top clubs of the China's LPL was supported by Tencent, which aims to build up its physical infrastructure by locating these clubs into the 6 of the top so-called first or second tier cities in China. So that is how they expanded their physical infrastructure. And when we move on the live stream, which is the bottom string of the eSport value chain. Live stream is the key means of reviewing and distributing the game and expanding the engaging the game audiences and experts. So you would say actually again, Tencent employed the domestic live stream and broadcasting platforms, and also trying to invest the outside one to build up their bottom string. Okay, so in 2000, that's the big move event of the bottom string. In 2018, Tencent not only set up a mobile eSport brand which called Peijing eSport, but also invested in Douyu or Huya, which is two leading live stream broadcast platforms. And also you can see the revenue that comes up from the tournaments live streaming, and also the spring 2018 regular season saw a year-on-year increase of 100% to 34 million LPL spectators. So that's what we say, that Tencent live stream respond well to the expanding role and the needs of the eSport audiences, and also embodied the new interactive between the production and the consumer in gaming platforms. And the reason why live streaming is the most important distributors of the bottom string, because that's the story that we have to go back to 2004 because there's some gossip. There's a TV program called eSport World on CCTV5, but there's something gossip and that arose the authority and has been banned. The whole program has been banned. So that's why eSport, in particular the tournaments, could not be broadcast through the digital television. So live streaming so far in China is the only way to distribute the content, which is the significantly different from that in Korea or American, because they're so reliant on the television to disseminate the content. So okay, that's the conclude of the role of the Tencent, that he is the main producer of the game content, the major executive of the gaming league, and also established the live broadcast industry chain. So when I ask, because there are another media conglomerate it calls eSport Wang Yi in China, also compete with Tencent about the eSport and the gaming. When I ask the managers and the chief coaches, have you ever think about to withdraw the products or tournaments from the Tencent and move to the eSport one, the Wang Yi one? But it is it's impossible, because it's nearly impossible for eSport professional to opt out of participating in Tencent eSport, because that opportunity loss cost is extremely high. So that is another story why eSport right now could be officially coined as one of the sport in Asian Games, but not in Olympic Games. We're still waiting for the outcome, but it is impossible, because it's very hard to solve the problem about the capitalist one, because Tencent, like the big giant on eSport industry, he is the one determining the content and determining the rules and the policies, and also he trained the coaches and the players. So how to be a sustainable sport has been monopolized by one company. So that's another story. So my conclusion for the first part about the role of the Tencent and the government through the perspective of the platformalization of infrastructure is the Tencent eSport industry has closed the loop between the platform owned and the government, and played multiple roles simultaneously to proactively establish multi-sided platforms, including authorizing, producing, distributing content, acting as the executive body of a number of leagues, and posing as the monopoly power enterprises and dominating the market players in the Chinese eSport industry. Okay, so if you ask me, how about the future of Tencent and what's the games they would like to play for the whole industry? I would say there's one interesting thing that could focus is, actually, I think in 2017, Tencent has announced that eSport is the first and largest pan-entertainment industry. However, after 1 year in the same time in Sanya, they announced that Tencent has moved from one of the pan-entertainment industry to the biggest, largest new cultural creative industry, which integration of the cultural industry and the digital technology. But the question is, how could be a new and the largest cultural creative industry? Why move from pan-entertainment to cultural creative industry? That's the questions I'm still curious, and I would like to explore further. But this slide shows us my research outcome. How could we use the data infrastructure to understand the government and Tencent play with each other and build up this kind of eSport empire. So that's the feature I've drawn. Now I would like to move on the second part, which I'm focused on the identity transformation, stigma, power, and the mental well-being of the eSport professional players. As you will see, there are some questions about how to distinguish between the professional players or athlete with the gamer, the online gaming edicts. So there are a lot of questions that comes up when you try to distinguish them. So I have asked the 3 questions when I interviewed the players. The first is, are you athlete? The second question, oh, you are an athlete. The third is, are you sure you're an athlete? So I try to explore the answers through the development of the whole industry. How could they self-perceive their identity transformation? So in the first part, when I ask, are you athlete? Because in a long time, the eSport has been stigmatized by the whole society because the gaming has been described as electronic heroin, and which is conflict with the Chinese cultural value, the core cultural value, positive moral. In Chinese we call it 正道, which means the people who are going to the eSport career, that means they have to give up the traditional one. They have to go to the college or university, or even draw from the high school. So which is hard to be accepted by their parents, by the whole society. So when I ask, what do you think the differences for you between the games and the eSport? Someone said the video games are something for you to spend money on, and the eSport is something for you to make money. So what video games is spend money, eSport is make money. And also some responses state, when they renting a house for both living and working, no secured investment, no insurance, no cooperation model. That is the situation before the 2011. So at that time, they called dark days for the whole society. So unlike nowadays, the boundaries of professional and non-professionals is more clear than before, but that day is so blurry. And now, once you have signed the contract and finalized the payment of 五险一金, which is 5 insurance and 1 fund, that means you are already professional. Okay, so when I ask, okay, at that time, before 2011, how about the attitude from the parents? And there is a quote. I think that is really important, because when I ask a player whose father is a professor in the university, the top university, he said his father cannot accept it until one chief coaches said to his father, playing billionaire might have been a rogue action 20 years ago, but now it is a gentleman activity. So similarly, eSport has great potential as a very, charming and charming one. So his father has been accepted finally. Now that guy has doing his PhD in the University of Leeds. So he's the most inspired player for me, that how to deal with this kind of precarity job. And also, how to say, the after 2011 to 2016, actually there are 3 main factors has driven the fascinating development of China's eSport industry. The first reason is what we have talked about, the Chinese government, how they facilitate numerous policies and events to support, and also because the whole environment led by President Xi aiming to become a new global sporting power and determined to use the cultural sport to global engagement to achieve the Chinese dream. So 2 years ago, there's a new job has been called eSport Running Man, has been officially called. So it's a job now. And also some regional level governing bodies has also supported the whole industry. For example, Xi'an, Chengdu, Shanghai, Taicang, which are the most active city, have launched a series of the regulations and the policy to attract the clubs and the investment. And also, as you will see, the CCTV has showed a very how to say the ambiguous or implicit attitude about eSport, even though it is still allowed to broadcast through the digital TV set, but the news from the CCTV start to promote, start to lead. So that's what I'm looking for. Even though next year in the Asian Games, we still don't know if the CCTV will live broadcast the eSport events. Okay. And the second reason to drive the rapid development is because of the Wang Sitong. I don't know whether all of you familiar with him. He's a billionaire and also the billionaire songs. And he has invested 500 million RMB in his own corporations, the Promises Capital, to facilitate a strong entry into the field since 2011. So when I interviewed the people, the stakeholders in the industry, most of them named Wang Sitong has been an important driving force that improved the whole society, because they mentioned that, for example, one CEO recalled what Sitong said to him several years ago, and I want to help you, the other players, the other clubs. I would like you guys to live better, and I hope this whole industry will be able to see the light. And also he coined the CCM eSport Club, which is has been renamed recently called IG, and concentrate on 3 projects like StarCraft 2, the Dota, and the Leagues of the Legend. And then he appointed the Sun Yupei as the CEO and improved the basic salary of the eSport player to 10,000 RMB. So that's the very important base for most of the interviewees mentioned, because he improved the whole salary of the whole society. So they feel like they have this kind of faith, this kind of 面子 when they talk about these people when they're facing their parents or the people around. So that's the whole investment path from Wang Sitong. And the third reason is because almost all interviewees has clearly explained the daily operation of the system of training programs in their own clubs, which is significantly drawn from the United States National Basketball Association training system and the value chain. So in most of the clubs, this includes constant cycles of the intense training, psychological counseling, team management, and the strategic skill development. And they have a 6-round recruitment system. So when I interview them, you could easily find out how they pursue the winner, the champion in the whole society. So when I ask, okay, so how could you pursue in the true spirit of the sportsmanship? The chief coach gave me a very detailed information how they judge people who have talent and they're able to, have a good record. So it is that firstly, they are gifted in terms of the natural motor skills. They're quick with their hand-eye coordinations, and secondly, they must have excellent dynamic and static vision. That is the ability to capture and process information in an instant from any moving images. Another attribute I think which is also an essential part of their talent is logically thinking, although it can also be enhanced through the intense training. Some of the born, they may be called naturally intelligent children who are react quickly and make appropriate judgment based on series of the conditions. These three qualities are the common one. Okay, so that's the third driving force when they try to pursue in the true spirit of the sportsman. That's how they transform themselves from a stigmatized one or then to a professional one. That's the first stage to second stage. And however, because of the policy that banned the eSport from television broadcast, still affected this whole group of people significantly. Why I say that? Because some of the players said it is still a shame that because I asked them, why you so care about the eSport could broadcast through the TV feed? Because now we all watch through the mobile, when we watch the videos, short videos, so we don't have time to watch the TV. But they say it is a shame, although most of our young customers are getting used to watch the tournaments through the computer or mobile phones. However, the old, in particular their parents, they even feel the content on TV is safer and they are more able to accept it. So this broadcasting on TV help us show off to our parents to get the respect for our family. So you could say actually sometimes they would self-stigmatized by the whole environment. Then the last part, when I keep continue asking, are you sure you're athlete? Because of the bottom stream of the whole inside society that quite depend on the live stream. So when I interview them, I found that I will move more quick because of time limit. The model, the player's income, because of the live stream has become so differently. So the model has propagated or even forced some players into an economic-driven career path. When we consider the large salary gap of the average annual income of official player is between the 18,000 RMB to 20 million RMB, because which means that some players who have talent to play games to have the willingness to get the champion. However, they are so quick to addict to be a live streamer and to go for to play the games on the live streaming. So some chief coaches are so disappointed because not all players are so good at do the live streaming. So which means they will disappear or have disappeared so quick in the whole industry because they cannot go back to the professional one, and also they're not good at doing the live streaming. So it is a pity that they have disappeared. So that's the bottom stream have significantly influenced the whole career path, and I would say these powerful futures. So that's why I'm continuing to explore the further study about eSport education. How could this whole society or whole career could be sustainable developed? And I would like to end up here, and because I will leave a couple of minutes to Q&A, and I'm really enjoyed, even though we still try to get used to the online talk, but yeah, hopefully you will enjoy it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Yupei, for a really fascinating talk. I've got some questions coming in the Q&A, so I will take them in turn. I'll read you out a question and let you respond to it, and then I'll take the next one if that's all right. So the first question comes from Jinghan Zhang, who's the director of our Confucius Institute. And he says, you mentioned that eSports is not online game. However, the public understanding may be different. Many conservative parents would not prefer their children to participate in eSports. How will this affect the development of China's eSport, and how will eSport live with the CCP's socialist core values?
Yeah. Okay, that's a very important question, because so far, I think from the academic side, from entrepreneurial side, we all try so hard to help the public, help the government that could clearly distinguish from the eSport and the gaming, online gaming. And in Chinese, we called not in Chinese, in English, it's called eSport comes from gaming, but it has worked beyond the gaming, because gaming is just for fun, it's just for social, for entertainment. But eSport is a sport that is the whole of the society pursuing the sport of in the true spirit of the sportsmanship. Now, I would say in practice, the government still hold a vague attitude, but they have to be changed because of the market and because of the global popularity of eSport. So why in 2016 is a key year in the whole society? Because the government realized actually if they couldn't launch a series of policy to govern the whole industry, that means the whole industry will lay back from the global popularity. And also, why the eSport cannot be broadcast through the TV set? It is said, there's another story that said the conflict of interest between the Department of Culture and the Department of Television, Film, and in short, it's called the PPEFST. In Chinese, it's called 广电总局. Yeah, so you would say eSport has been governed by a different department. So I think in recent years, like from the 2018, in 2018, the whole society start to be governed more manageable when we're comparing the years before the 2018, because the policies sometimes are conflict with each other when they're issued by different departments. So yeah, in practice, the public still can so hard to distinguish from eSport and play games. But that's what we try hard to distinguish the two things.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Yupei. I have a couple of more questions lined up, and I'll start with one from Andrew Chubb, who says, this is really interesting subject. It's actually quite closely related to the project of Chen Zhuo, one of the PhD students here at Lancaster University China Center. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the evolution of the specific platforms for eSport. For example, Chen has identified a shift from the fully public platform on Weibo to the less public platform of WeChat. Has there been a general trend towards more private or semi-private platforms for eSporting activities, or is it only becoming increasingly public and visible? And if so, what has been the impact of such evolutions? Do you understand the question?
I think, okay, that's a different angle to to look at the whole industry. So far, no. The social media or the apps they established for to distribute the content of eSport are all for public because they have to make money. They have to attract the public. They have to gain 流量, the traffic rates. So why they focus on the less public media platforms? If I have answered the question?
I think so. If not, Andrew, feel free to jot a follow-up question in the Q&A, and I will put to you another question from Jinghan Zhang, which is about gender, I think. So the Chinese Ministry of Education, he says, recently proposed to teach masculinity to Chinese boys in order to make them man up. Does this call have any implication for China's esports? And maybe I could tack on to that a question about whether there are any women in this. I didn't really see any in your presentation. Is this just an entirely male sphere? Are the women just absent? Are they just there as worried mums? Or what is the role of women, if any, in all of this?
Okay, I'm mute now. Okay. Yeah, I think Professor Zheng's question is really interesting. First things, why the government call for masculinity course? I think that because of the TV entertainment program that has been significantly affected by the Korea one, and the boys, which has been criticized by the public, that being lack of the masculinity, and yeah, there are some not a nice name to name them. So I will not share here, but it's not a good name to describe this whole group of the boys who are lack of the masculinity. But when we think about these things, refers to the eSport, why there is less girls or female players, because female players is really hard to get the champions. That's the answers from the industry, from the clubs managers. And the second is most of the tournaments that are focused on the female, that's because of just for entertainment, for like male gaze, you know, the theory of the male gaze. So the clubs, some of the clubs, they have tried before to employ the female as professional players, but they found that they couldn't make money. They could only make money when the females who has nice faces and simultaneously playing games. So that's very tricky. It's not professional. So yeah.
Brilliant. And I was also wondering if you could tell us a bit more about the kind of the stigma that you brought up in your presentation about kind of esports not being proper, not being perhaps moral. And this, I guess, ties back to the question of the kind of socialist core values and so on as well. How, especially perhaps in terms of gender identities and new kinds of masculinity that are emerging in China at the moment in all sorts of spheres of life. Could you comment any more on how those kind of values coming from the top, from the government, as it were, directives about what a real man's supposed to be like, what a good citizen is supposed to be like, what parents think good sons, perhaps children, are supposed to be like. do they clash, these different values? And if so, is there contestation, as it were, or does one yield to the other?
Okay, I think there are several questions, right? The first is, how are they stigmatized by the public? I think there is the story that I haven't mentioned during my presentation, is the relationship between the eSport clubs and the parents. One interviewee told me, normally, managers have to run in the manager things in their clubs, but one of the important manager things for them is to deal with the relationship with the parents. And normally, there are 4 to 5 parents visit the clubs every day to visit their children, to see if their children has been dragged away, has been cheated by someone else, because they don't trust the clubs. And so they follow and chase on what's going on with the clubs, and if they are professional, and if they are they just don't trust it until so for example, the coaches said when their children got the championship, and there are some big grand bonus will come up to his bank, so the first thing for them is to contact the parent to say, okay, to see your child has got the champion, and there's a huge amount of the money will be, transformed to his account, and this kind of the contacting things become a normal but very important things that they have to deal with the parents. So that is the perspective why the eSport has been still stigmatized. So why the children are so care about their income, because they feel like this kind of economic the income can improve their face, can gain means to when they show off to their parents, to say, okay, see, I have a job and I have good income, and I'm not addicted, I'm not heroin on my heroin. Yeah. And also, for example, in my university, we have eSport association, a student association, but that is not officially one. They are still doing underground, because if the university, because I have interviewed the manager in the university who charged the student association, he say they are still looking for the attitude outside, in particular from the government, because if they try to help the association to promote their activities, it will be very easy to be criticized by the professors, in particular the professors who are not understand what exactly the eSport, and they are misunderstand all eSport and the games. Yeah. And your second question that records me the masculinity things. Yeah, gender studies, the last one I have studied before, but that's very interesting. I just feel like that records me when people ask what's the differences about eSport and the sport, in particular how to understand eSport, the sport from the sport knowledge. And there's a critic said, actually, when people doing eSport, that replaced 20% of the time of their energy that should be focused on doing sport. And that actually, that critic has been responded well by another group of people who are testing the people who are, playing eSport, their heart rate, their muscles. So all the kind of data has changed and is much better than they doing the traditional one. So there's a call to, to concentrate on how can we understand eSport from a new perspective of sport. It's called the digital sport.
Wonderful, and thank you very much. With that, I say thank you very much to Professor Yupei Zhao for coming and speaking to us here at Lancaster University China Center and Lancaster University Confucius Institute. We look forward to continuing our conversation with you in future, and thank you very much for this wonderful talk, which will be available online through our websites. Thank you very much. Bye.